Welcome back. Well, in this video I finish the office walls and I start decorating it and creating what I would call my ultimate office. So I start with making like a skirting. I just use some pine and stain it, and I want it the sort of industrial feel of, as I mentioned before, so I'm using corrugated iron. It's just like zinc aluminum, and I sort of went out of my way there in the corners to match the iron up so I didn't have to have a timber join there. They all went together pretty good, and all the ceilings throughout this workshop is going to be fully insulated, as are the internal walls, but because there's obviously two sides to the internal wall, I'll insulate these ones a bit later, but the external walls I am insulating as I go along. Now with the first couple of walls done, I fit the office door and I paint this in that wood grain effect, as you can see in an earlier video if you wanted to see how I did that. And I just added the window, no particular reason, but it is nice to know if the lights are left on or not inside the main workshop. So it's all coming up pretty good. Again, if you haven't seen this floor finish, it's a timber look out of concrete, and check out my previous video to see how I did that. This is the insulation. So the ceiling is insulated in R4, and the walls, because they're 150mm cavity, I decided on R3.5, and I just, as I said, insulate all the walls just to make this as warm and as cool as possible throughout the year. So the walls are nearly done at this point. I do want to put a TV in, I'm waiting for it. So at this point I start on my office desk. Now I had this office desk custom made about 20 odd years ago out of old recycled Baltic pine, and you can see the gold handles, the trims on it don't really suit that industrial look. So I'm going to rework this a bit and make a mold steel frame just similar to the feel of the outside of my barn doors. So I cut out some plate. These are for the feet of the legs, and I use box section or RHS, and just slowly, I basically have an idea in my mind at this point and I just build it as I go along. So I remove some of the trims off of the original desk that I won't need, and there wasn't too much glue behind them, which was pretty good actually, made it a bit easier. And I remove a bit of the base as well, because I want to have this new design so the bottom of the timber is actually off the floor by a couple of inches. So I'll cut that away and slowly get it to a point where I can build a frame around it. So I'll take the trims off, take the handles off. On this particular drawer frame, I had to remove the back as well to make it work properly and make it a little bit shallower to fit the way I wanted. And you know, it feels a bit odd cutting up timber so old, but it's better than throwing it out. So there's a bit of a look at the end. I start tigging it together, and I decided on putting a crossbuck on the end as well to sort of match the feel of my barn doors. So just using the 2x1 inch, just 1.6mm thick or 16 gauge, and the legs are 3-inch RHS, and I just weld them up and check the fit. You can see that crossbuck there. I think it looks okay. At this point I start the frame that's going to hold the tabletop, and again just use that RHS for that, and then I test fit the top. It's a reasonably large desk, so I just position everything so I can finish the frame off, paint it before I actually put it in the office area. Now you can see that front, I've modified it a bit to have like a raised front, and I'm going to use some timber that I've purchased new to put in there, and I might put like a logo, Mesmo Engineering logo or something there at some point. I thought that would work reasonably well. And this is with it pretty much welded up. I just out here now, I weld the plate for the feet and I arc weld those, try to do as neat a weld as I can, and it all turned out pretty good. So then once it was all welded, I use epoxy enamel black, same as the barn doors, and I turn it upside down just to get the underside done, and then I let that dry, turn it the other way around, and then finish painting it off, and come out quite good. I really like that paint actually. With it all painted, I just let it dry, and then I start sanding down the timber. So the original desk was stained in like a light colour, and I want more of a brown sort of colour. So I decided to sand it back to raw timber, and as you can see, it's really nice quality. So I sanded 120 then to 240, and then I try staining it. And what I did is I used the stain and varnish. I've never used it before, like an oil-based one, and it actually came up really good. So this is just cutting the timber for the front, and I use Baltic pine as well, but new Baltic, same as what I used on my floorboards, tongue and groove. And I just simply put one screw top and bottom into the frame after I stain it, and that all worked out pretty good actually. Same thing, sand down to 240, 2 coats of stain and varnish, and here's the stain and varnish going on the original part of the drawer. And yeah, as I said, I was really happy with this paint. Went on really nice. I do like the colour. I just gave it a light sand between coats, and again 2 coats. Now slowly put it together in position in the office itself, because it's quite a big and heavy desk, and you know, would have been hard work I think to move it around if I fully built it outside. So to get the edge where it butts up to my front, I mark a line. I end up using a router just to get a really nice straight edge, because this front section is joined as well, and I didn't want to have any gaps when it was joined up to that front face. And you know, the router seemed to work fine. I mean, probably you could do it with a circular saw as well, but I like using the router. So once I had that wood stained, you can just see here, just put it together. It was pretty easy, it doesn't take any load. So as I said earlier, just one screw top and bottom. Alright. Well, whilst this is looking nice, I've suddenly realised that's just too high. I won't be able to see the fire, and so things don't always go to plan. What I'm going to do is cut this down maybe to about here. So I'm going to fix this up and I'll be right back. Righto, so it's all fixed. I made a new top. I was going to put wood on here, and I've decided that I'll just make it metal, and I've made it a lot lower so there'll just be a little riser, and now I can see the fireplace and everything else. So things don't always go to plan, but for me, if something's wrong, I'd rather get it right and redo it. So there you go. So at this point I start sanding down the tabletop itself, or the desktop, and you know, for something so old, and I haven't really looked after it that well, it sanded down really nicely. The timber is great, and I just use the same stain on there. Now once I had it sanded, I test fit it together just to make sure it's going to fit properly, and then once I had it joined up, I clamp it, I put some tape across, and I put some new biscuit joints in there just to give it a bit of extra strength. And once they were cut, it was pretty simple. Just put the biscuit joiner in there with some glue, and it was all good. Now one thing I wanted to do was build in a phone charger that you can't actually see. So I hunted around, I found this one here that can apparently do up to 20 millimeters through wood, and my desk is 21 millimeters and my phone has a cover, but I thought I'd try it anyway. And I was surprised actually on how well this one worked, and it worked fine. But just to be sure, I decided to route out the bottom of the desk by about 7mm. So rather than go through 21mm plus a cover, I reduced it down so it would only have to go through 15mm of wood. Now when you do this, what I like about it is there's no cables, you just sit your phone there, but the thing is you can't see it, so you need to have some sort of logo. So I decided on this sort of like lightning bolt, and what I did is once I had it in the right spot, taped it down. I just took my time. I used a little chisel and a Stanley knife and just carefully cut that out of the top of the desk. I cut down maybe between 1 and 2mm, and you know, it was a bit fiddly, but I'd never done it before, but just took my time, and as you can see, I think it turned out alright. Now once I had it cut like that, I just mixed up some epoxy, put some black colouring in it, filled it up, and you know, I left it for a couple of days to set properly before I attempted to sand it. And while I was waiting for that to dry, I pushed ahead with the TV, which finally was delivered. So I wanted to build a frame for the TV so I could inset it into the wall, because I had this idea, I just want the TV to be flush with the wall and not sticking out. So I cut the corrugated iron around it. I use WeatherTex, as you can see here, that's the same product I use for the soffit, and it's just recycled hardwood, and it, you know, just nice and neat and tidy. I just brad nail it into the frame. I've got all the cables there, so all the cables are hidden behind the wall. You know, the power, I've got a USB cable and HDMI so that I can run everything from my desk. Put the bracket on there, we'll lift it up. All these modern TVs are pretty light, so it was pretty good. And once that was hung, that was pretty much ready to go. Now I got back to this logo. After it dried, it sanded no problem, and I just messed about with it a bit till I got it to blend into the wood with a reasonably sharp edge on the logo, and then I just painted over it. I only did one coat. Then what I did is I glued it all together in position on the desk, and once I had it glued and it was all pretty much done, I gave it a light sand and did the second coat on the desk with it already assembled. So you can see here, the biscuit joints go in, put some glue in there, I strapped it together, I left it overnight, and it all joined up pretty good, and then I was able to mount it to the frame pretty securely. This is the second coat going on. As I said, I'm really impressed with this product actually. I would definitely use that again. I like the colour it gives. Now you can see in a minute this is finished and it's wet, that's why it's obviously gloss, but it actually goes as a satin finish, and you can see it here. This is the finished product once it's dried. Now the last thing I wanted to do is get rid of my gold handles, because it didn't really have the feel I wanted, so I got some angle iron, I used some rebar, and I decided just to make my own handles to make it that sort of industrial look. A bit of cutting and welding, it wasn't too hard. Once I had this welded, I just ground it flush with a flapper wheel. And then once I had them all done, it was just a matter of giving them a coat of paint. I painted them in gloss black just like I did with the rest of the desk, and I think they come up pretty good. Definitely heavy duty, but it goes along with the rest of the theme of this workshop. With those painted, it was just a matter of fitting them, and the desk was then done. So the drawer frames and the drawers themselves I reused, so there was no reason why they weren't going to fit, and it did make this job a bit easier. I just put the handles on, and finally the desk was done, and yeah, really happy with it. It's the first time I've actually had an office space dedicated to just being able to do my videos and my other work, and yeah, I'm really happy with the way this has turned out. So there's the desk finished, and I got the fireplace in as well. I've got the TV in, and I've got an old motorbike there just to give it that sort of man cave sort of feel, I guess. Let me know what you think. I do like the feel of this. It's you know, that industrial type feel. The desk turned out amazing, I thought, and I like that logo. It charged very reliably, so very happy with that. Pretty solid. Hopefully I don't have to move it again. Let me know what you think. If you've enjoyed this build, don't forget to like and subscribe, and put any comments you might have in the comment section. Now we're at the tail end of winter in Australia, and with the fireplace all set up, I thought I'd just have one go at lighting it, and not that it's going to be any problem, but just to see how it warms the room up. It's a great little fire, this one. With all the insulation in the walls and the roof, it warmed the room really quickly. I'll see you in the next video.